Hello, everyone. This is the Project Review Committee. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, project review committees are being held virtually with no in-person attendance. PRC meetings are open to be viewed by the public, which is why this is being broadcast on YouTube. The Project Review Committee is an advisory committee that reviews major site plans and then issues a recommendation to the manager of zoning. PRC is made up of a number of city staff members, as well as 3 urban design specialists from the community. So we're going to get started with introductions, and I'll just go around the room and call out people's names, and they can give us their name and their background. So I'll start on Tom Kisior. I'm the site plan review coordinator in the zoning office, and we'll start with Dave.
Hi, everybody. It is frankly good to see everybody, and especially the folks who have been working together for so long. I'm an architect and here in Rochester with SWBR, and been involved with PRC for, golly, 25 years, probably.
Thanks, Roger.
How long has it been, David?
Well, it went back to the design, the Downtown Design Committee, DDC, and then it became PRC. Yeah. And we wrote the zoning. So there you go.
So Roger Brown, architect, and I will be very happy when we can do all of this in person.
Yeah,
I agree. Sabrina?
My name is Sabrina Boykin. I'm from the city's DES Architectural Services.
Donna?
Hi, I'm Donna Clements. I'm a civil engineer with DES Street Design on behalf of the city engineer.
Thanks. Doreen?
Hi, Doreen Kirkmeyer, manager of planning for the city.
Thanks, Doreen. Chris?
I'm Chris Snyder. I'm a senior zoning analyst with the zoning office here on behalf of the manager of zoning.
And Matt?
Matt Vanderwall, City of Rochester Buildings Department, representative for.
Thanks, Matt. And then we have 3 of our applicants here, starting with Jeff.
Hi, my name is Jeff Morozek. I'm the senior landscape architect in the Department of Environmental Services and here for the Erie Harbor Phase 2 project.
Thanks. Tom?
My name is Tom Palumbo with Stantec. We're the design lead for the project. I manage the community development group here in Rochester. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Tom. And Amanda?
Amanda Fetaplace. I'm with Stantec. I am a landscape architect working on this project.
Thanks. So we will hand it over to, I think Jeff's going to get started and kind of give us a background of the project, and then we can go into questions and answers with the PRC committee.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. The image you're looking at on the screen is the master plan that was developed as part of phase 2. And I'll step back quickly and explain why it's phase 2. Phase 1 was completed in 2014 in conjunction with the Erie Harbor Apartments redevelopment. The private piece of that development established 3 connections between Mount Hope Avenue and the Genesee Riverway Trail and the waterfront, basically to provide greater connectivity to the neighborhoods to the east, to the waterfront. So if you look at across from Averill Avenue, there's the major connection point, but there are smaller connections at Hamlin and Hickory Streets. All are public access points, open to the public. The project also included some streetscape improvements along the frontage of Mount Hope Avenue and some public art installations. That was completed in 2014. As part of that effort, an overall master plan for the site was completed. That was established, and then the 3 connection points were established or designed and built as part of that off the master plan. Phase 2 is funded by Department of State and the Rock the Riverway Initiative. And as part of our effort, our initial design effort was to take another look at the master plan with some fresh eyes, did a whole series of, we have a project advisory committee that will actually be meeting once again with our 6th time this afternoon at 6 o'clock. But we've also had 2 public meetings, and we will have a third to kind of roll out our final designs. And we did a series of online surveys and 2 public intercepts, one at the Southwedge Farmers Market and then one on a Saturday, pretty nice sunny Saturday in the summer. Set up a tent along the trail and kind of captured some passerbyers just to get some general input. So we've had quite a bit of public input on this that's fed into the master plan. So what's shown on the screen now is our recommended master plan. And the 2 dashed areas, the one at Ford Street on the south side and the one on the north side, north of the Hamilton Tower, are largely the focus of the phase 2 improvements. That's what we have funding for, and that's what we're moving forward with, and that's what's before you today. The south side, largely a passive green space, kind of a transient space, not a lot of activity in it. So basically our goal is to reestablish trail connections, and I'll back up again real quick. Both this site and the northern site have had some significant environmental issues that have been remediated over the years through our Department of Environmental Quality. Stantec had a part in a lot of that work through their environmental unit as well. So they had some pretty good familiarity with it. Unfortunately, those environmental remediation projects also often don't have restoration funds. So the sites were left in fairly rough shape, discontinuous paths, some amenities that weren't restored. So that's largely the focus of this project, is to restore those 2 sites to fully functional park spaces. The south site, largely passive, reestablishing some connections that were disrupted by the environmental projects. So the path system you see, we're going to be restoring, not doing the community grills and seating area at this time. That'll be a future phase. Same with the shade structures, but we will be establishing the path system, putting in some benches and grills to activate the space. From what we've heard from the public, that's kind of desired as a minimal amenity, and also doing some vegetation management. There'll be some tree removals, but mostly plantings to buffer and screen and to protect some view sheds. The kind of rock escarpments that you see kind of winding through the site, we will not be doing at this time. It's a budget issue, and future phase would look at addressing those kind of things. The river trail, we're showing along here, there's some pretty significant changes along the river trail that are proposed in the master plan between the north and south sites that we will not be doing. Their long-term vision that will depend on future funding for design and construction. Obviously, the biggest piece you see there is kind of the naturalized shoreline. Pretty big change, would be a pretty significant hurdle to permit, but a lot of other communities have done it on their waterfronts. We think it's feasible, and it would be a good option. Obviously, the west side is doing some wall removal and not quite naturalization. They're still maintaining a wall, but it'll be interesting to see how that all works out, and might lead to kind of some direction on this naturalization here. So Tom, if you can go to the north side. The north side is largely the active area of the park, most accessible from the neighborhood. Big source of use is the Hamilton Tower directly adjacent. And this is where the majority of the active use amenities are now. There's an existing playground and basketball court that we propose to remove and replace. We worked pretty significantly with the Southwedge and their farmers market group to make sure we have accommodations for their future use and continued use of the site after construction. That central spine is basically the area where they can set up tents, tables, that kind of thing. It's fairly wide to accommodate those type of uses and still allow pedestrian access through. But also we want to provide direct connectivity from Mount Hope to the river. The playground is all new playground, kind of custom designed. Still working towards feedback from the neighborhood. We'll get more of that tonight and at our final public meeting. but we're pretty close on that. And then the basketball courts, this plan is showing 2 courts. We don't have funding for both courts in this phase, so we will do 1 court. There'll be room for a future court in the future. And then the frontage along Mount Hope, there's a sign wall, park entry signage. You can see that blue line running north-south. If you're familiar with the site, there's kind of some 3 large kind of star-shaped concrete towers, remnant of the 1970s design, the last time this was really updated. Those will be coming out. And one thing we heard throughout all the public input is that people don't recognize this as public space. It kind of reads as Erie Harbor or Hamilton Tower space. And so we're trying to make it more prominent that it is park space, and part of that is direct signage on Mount Hope Avenue to identify it as a city asset. We also, I'm not sure if Tom, you had that included yet, but we're proposing some boundary markers along the length of the boundary between the park space and the park and the Erie Harbor Apartments to kind of set the boundary, kind of random placement of stones with some marking piers at the entryways at the 3 fingers of public access to kind of demarcate that boundary zone, so that we heard repeatedly that people really weren't comfortable stepping off the trail because they thought it was private property of the Erie Harbor Apartments. So we're trying to change that thought process and, allow the full park space to be used. And then the final piece that's largely funded by the Rock the Riverway initiative is the hand-carried boat launch along the river wall. When the East River Wall was rebuilt some years ago, there was a floating dock put in, lasted about a year before it was kind of hammered by floating logs and debris, and hasn't been in since. So we've worked with our kind of waterfront specialist through Stantec to design a more sustainable hand-carried boat launch that's a ramp down in. Instead of protruding into the river or putting a floating dock in the river, this kind of cuts into the river wall and creates an embayment that'll have a sloped ramp down in to Tom, you can jump in. I think it's a 2 to 3 foot water depth.
Yep.
So people can walk their canoes and kayaks down in. There'll also be a parallel, kind of a parallel walk space. So you can see that's kind of gray there that you could walk along. And if you're more comfortable that way, getting into your canoe off of a dock, you can do it that way. And then, direct access into the water. And we've also coordinated with the Rochester Fire Department. They have needs for emergency access for their trailered floating boat to get into the water. Right now, they don't have access. Kind of stories they've told us is they've had to lower it over the wall on the west side, kind of find a place without trees and lower it, or go over the railing on this side. So we're trying to accommodate some access for them where they can back down on this trail and access this dock to launch their craft in the water. We're trying to get, as part of the Rock the Riverway, get much more kind of canoe kayak access and use on this stretch of the river on the south of downtown, and it'll be critical to make sure we have that emergency access.
I think it's also good to note that'll be a ADA accessible feature as well.
Yep.
The area next to the launch, the gray area, will be, is a good way for folks to launch in from an accessible standpoint if they need assistance.
The larger trail will be pretty much within the dashed area here, not touching it on the south side, but we will be rebuilding the trail in this section. Basically along the alignment you're seeing here, with some additional amenities, some trail signage, bike facilities, trash receptacles, benches, that kind of thing. And then there are some tree removals, but overall I think we're adding 25 trees to the overall plan. There are some removals to accommodate the new improvements. We are saving the majority of trees. There are a few relocations of trees that are in pretty good shape. We're actually going to relocate to new locations. And then as budget allows, we're hoping to do some repair of the existing river wall or river rail that's along this full length. We certainly won't be able to do it all, but it's at a state now where if we don't do something to address the paint system on it now, there'll be much more major replacement costs in the future. So we're working on building that into the project to do as much as we can.
Great. So for this group's knowledge, this project spans 2 zoning districts. It's partially an open space, which is the most of the river trail and the southern part of the park. And then a portion of the northern part of the park is in CCD. So the portions in open space are code compliant. There's no issues at all with that. The CCD portion, there are some code requirements related to plazas and promenades and things like that. It meets most of them. There are 2 that it doesn't quite meet. So I do want to go through those 2 specifically and just see what everyone thinks. And Jeff and the team can kind of explain those. So I'm going to pull up the code review quick here. So the first is that the plaza shall be constructed of wood, concrete, or modular unit paving. We're generally considering the plaza to kind of be this farm market area. There's not a true plaza, so it's, we're stretching a little bit. But I wanted them to just comment on the materials that they're using on the plaza and also the trail here.
Tom, you want to address that?
Sure. Yeah. So we're the main trail is primarily pavers. This space in this market area, we're looking at oh, I'm gonna lose it now.
Decomposed granite or stabilized granite.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Jeff, could you repeat that? I think.
Yeah, just a stabilized decomposed granite.
Yeah. Which will provide for some variation in texture and really kind of try to identify that. It's going to be, it'll be as durable as the pavers or if not more durable. So we were looking for a different type of material to really kind of let that stand out. We're also using that for some of the seating areas as well that come off of this main gateway entrance here.
Thanks. And then the second one is that plazas shall be landscaped with trees that provide areas that are 50% shaded at maturity. So the project is adding trees, but I think the thought is that it probably wouldn't be 50%. So that was the other waiver that we would want to be granting. So does anyone have comments on those 2 specifically? Are there concerns about the material or the amount of trees and landscaping?
I have a question.
Sure.
For the paver materials, it's a rough surface. How is that from a rideability standpoint? If you're in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller, is it really bumpy or?
Actually, the plans show we had initially hoped for concrete for the width of the main access aisle through the site from Mount Hope to the river. We're looking at doing some edging with that and then asphalt in the middle instead of concrete. And it's a cost thing at this point. So you'd have like a band along the edge and then asphalt in the middle. And
So it's not pavers? I'm confused.
there's a edge banding of pavers.
Okay.
Tom's pulling up.
Okay, got it.
So
the main path then is smooth,
right,
for the different user groups.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Except for you can see where the plaza areas are on kind of the north and south sides of that main aisle where the decomposed granite is. We have these kind of horizontal lines that go through, and so you'd have pavers carrying that band across. And this is part of the, this was carried through in the first phase, and we're carrying it through in the second phase as well, kind of a nod to the history of the site with the former rail lines that went through here and the former canal. So if you look at the one on the right side of the screen there that goes through that basketball court, that was a former feeder canal that went through on roughly that alignment. So just kind of a nod to the history of the site. But those would be the only interruptions.
Super.
So other questions or comments on the project as a whole? Or I can bring up any specific drawings anyone wants to see.
Well, I
Oh,
had,
sorry.
I had a question or two. This trail right along here seems to be obviously a huge major piece going through the project from the river to Mount Hope. And I was looking at this and trying to see, I really like a major features like this is to have at the end some sort of maybe a sculptural kind of an element or something that would sort of not necessarily terminate, but sort of provide some sort of a focal at the either end of a major trail like this. And the other thing was, I was really curious about if it was even considered where this crossing, I mean, will be a pedestrian crossing here or not?
There's a crosswalk on, you mean on Mount Hope?
Yeah, Mount
Yeah.
Hope, right at
Yeah.
the base. Can you see my arrow?
No, we can't.
No.
Okay, all right. Well, right at the base, yeah, so, all right.
Up there.
Yeah,
At Alexander.
You have a crosswalk off on the north side, and then it turns to the south for a while, and then it intersects and goes on the major trail piece that you're designing.
Yep.
And I just was wondering if it was even thought of where you would continue the line of the major walkway across Mount Hope to the southern side of is that Alexander?
It is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Alexander.
right.
And instead of doing the, I don't know, it just seems to be it doesn't accentuate or, this major main trail. Anyway, those are a couple thoughts, a couple pieces of either sculpture or something that would, or feature at the ends of those, of that Genesee trail would be sort of neat. But that's the only question I had.
Anyone else have questions?
What's the width where they're going to set up the farmer's market? I can't tell. Looks like it's maybe 12 feet in width.
What do you say? It's 14, Tom?
14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it's, as long as it's at least 12, that's fine. That's great. 14 is even better.
Yeah, and then you have the, the plaza spaces off on the north and south sides that, if you're talking about tent setup or something like that, there's a little extra space at various points along there.
Some little pull off areas that they could do something, unique with.
Right. Yeah. And for those of us who bike along here, which I do both west side and east side, at that intersection point, when I'm moving at my extremely fast pace of about 3 miles an hour, on my bike coming from the south heading toward the city, I am, remind me now, I'm trying to figure out, am I going to still be right along the river wall, or am I going to be up and enjoying this curvilinear piece here? I'm confused a little.
You're going to be high in that section, Dave. Right now that wall kind of goes up against that walk goes up against the retaining wall. That we're getting rid of that retaining wall.
Oh, good.
So you'll have a clear view down to the launch pad, to the launch area, the hand carry launch area, as well as, you'll see the playground and the rest of that.
Yeah, because I mean, it can be. The hope is that it's a vibrant area, kids and moms and dads and everybody are out there. But therefore, there needs to be a little bit of a slowdown there, because for those of us who bike, there are those who don't go 3 miles an hour. There are those who go 8 miles an hour, and those that go 15 miles an hour. And especially with the skate park once open and all that, will there be signage and or anything? I don't mean speed bumps or anything, but something that at least says, hey, turkey, don't go 15 miles through here with the kids running all over the place. Is there any consideration for that?
We can certainly consider some signage. We do have some Genesee Riverway Trail signage in here. I think we identified kiosks at either end of this major access point. It might make sense to put some slow down signs on the north and south approaches. I think you're certainly going to have cues, some visual cues. You're approaching a more active area. North and south, you're pretty much just trees and trail. But as you approach this, you're going to see kind of the major cross access point. You're going to see the playground and the boat launch area. So there's going to be some visual cues existing when this is put in the ground. But it probably couldn't hurt to have some slow down.
Yeah, I don't want to clutter up with signage. It's more, it would be, I think your visual cues are good. I just don't want somebody to really get hit and hurt. And 98% of the bikers that are out there are incredibly respectful and they know what they're doing. But then there are some who may be, in the 12 or 11-year-old to 13-year-old, and they're just piling through there.
Yeah.
And anyway, a sign may not make any difference anyway.
Yep.
What's the separation? Is this like a little wall between the playground?
Yeah, there's some grade change there.
Yep.
So we're showing some stacked rock, and then there's actually a fence just to provide some more physical separation so kids can't run right out towards the river along that section.
Yeah.
And we've provided for a area here for a future, we call it a concession stand, but it really would allow for future, kayak rental, things of that nature up in that corner off of the, right. You can see it dashed, and it's the dashed outline there that we've kind of reserved.
It's within the park boundary itself.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
So this plan is it's changed slightly because I mentioned that we're only doing one court. So the northernmost court that you see, or the westernmost court that you see on the left side there, that's the court to remain. It's actually shifted slightly towards the main east-west path through the site.
Yep.
And the purpose of that was so that we have future kind of a utility access point if that concession stand ever happens. There's room between, along that northern park boundary edge to bring utilities in for that facility if and when it was to happen.
Great. Is there any other questions? Otherwise, we could move to deliberations.
I had one quick question. It's not really related to our purview, but you said you're only doing the one basketball court rather than two.
Yep.
It seems like there's an economy of scale to do them at the same time. So I assume that you guys looked at what maybe a trade-off in the plan could be to get both those basketball courts at the same time, or?
Yeah, the trade-off's finding more money, unfortunately. We're very tight on the budget right now, and we're just trying to get the project in. We talked about, do we not do the playground? But there's huge need for the playground, huge demand for it. So that's the level of trade-off that it would be. It's not.
I got you.
Can you do an add-all? You got to pay obviously Stantec to put it on the drawings, but what we're finding is that bidding is incredibly positive in a very competitive way, we're getting numbers that are coming in way below what we thought because so many firms are dying to get work. So I'm not sure when it's going to go on the street, but you may find that you can actually get it in there if you get some good numbers.
Yep. It's certainly something we can do as an adult. It's a $200,000, I think, give or take, feature to put in additional court and fencing and hoops and all that. But
yeah. Or you can add it after the numbers come in and you look at,
we could always do a change order.
Yeah.
And I know we've had a mixed bag. We've had, throughout most of COVID, we had some very good pricing coming in from contractors. And I think more recently they've been a little higher. So hopefully we'll hit the good side of that.
So any motion or discussion?
I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to approve with a recommendation for maybe some speed signage around the playground area.
Second?
I second.
Any discussion around those points? No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say none. No, wonderful job.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a great project.
So I will call out voting members by name, and you can vote individually. So first we'll start with Holly.
Affirmative.
Thanks. Dave?
Yeah, affirmative. Yeah.
Roger?
Approve.
Doreen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yep.
Great. So we are recommending approval to the manager of zoning with the recommendation to include some sort of speed signage for the Riverway Trail. Thanks everyone for coming. I think this is a pretty exciting project, and I think we're all pretty excited to see how it looks when it's complete.
So am I.
Thanks for all your time.
I bet. All right. Thanks
Thank you
everybody.
Bye,
Go rock
everyone.
the Riverway.
Rock on, man.